Hi, Nikki, Tyler, and Janet. This is Monica, and I'm just checking in with a vodcast to tell you what I learned about case studies and place-based instruction. I'll start off with case studies. Case studies has been used in law school, and this type of instruction has been used in medical school. It's essentially you're trying to teach students about a field of study, but you're presenting it in a story format, and students have to find a solution to a real-world problem. And there are a lot of good reasons to use this in your curriculum, and if you want to use a case study, there are some great resources for telling you how to set that up. One of them that I found is this National Center for Case Study Teaching and Science. If you go to Teaching Resources, there's some great publications, so I'll just click on that. And the publication that I started off with is What Makes a Good Case? Some Basic Rules of Good Storytelling. And essentially, what I got out of that article is that if you're going to use a case study in your classroom, it must be recent, relevant, and conflict-provoking. Those are all the makers of a good story. That'll get students excited about what you're doing and keep them engaged. Another publication that I found really good was Case Studies in Science. And this kind of gives you some more reasons to insert case studies. And what I got out of that was that, I love this phrase, students have to grapple with real-life messy problems. And so students are given this problem, they have to sort through it, and it's a real-life problem, so it's something that hopefully they'll be into. Now the instructor could sabotage this and completely be the sage on the stage who just gets up and talks, and there is a place in case studies for lectures, as you'll see in a minute, but make it more student-centered, be the guide on the side, and you'll get really good results, I think. Essentially, what the teacher does, or the instructor does, is they pose the question or the problem, and then they set up some kind of format to help the kids debate the problem. It could be a discussion, a public debate, a public hearing, or a trial format. And as I was reading about case studies, it made me think a lot about problem-based learning, where students are given a guiding question and they have to work through a problem to find a solution. But I think that the nice thing about a case study is you could insert it really anywhere in your curriculum, and it doesn't take a week or 2 weeks to complete like maybe project-based learning does. So they give you some advice on how to write your own case. I think that's totally overwhelming. I think that if you go to the National Center for Case Study Teaching in Science and you go to Teaching Resources, they have some awesome, if you go to Case Collection right here, they have some awesome cases that you can just grab and use these lesson plans. This is one that I thought was pretty cool, Farming in Space. You can download these cases, use them in your classroom. In this one, students have to develop a sustainable food supply on Mars, so they're given a problem statement. The teacher has already outlined a problem-solving method, different parts of the project that students are going to do. Some questions go along with this as well. And this is just one example that I looked at, and there are many more on this National Center for Case Study Teaching and Science. So take those, download them, use them whenever you can. And like I said, it doesn't take a week or 2 weeks to implement this. You could easily do this in a day or 2 or 3 days. So it's less intimidating to me than project-based learning, and it might be a nice break for your students from your regular routine. Okay, and then the next one that I looked at was place-based instruction. And I didn't really understand what this was about when I first started reading it, but as I read more, it's really similar to field studies. Students are learning about phenomena that are local to their own environment, something that is relevant in their local place or their local environment, and it is inquiry-based. And so on our content, when we go to place-based instruction, these two gentlemen, Gautreaux and Binns, did some research on this to try to find out, did traditional or place-based instruction lead to higher student gains in terms of achievement and also in their attitudes about science. And in a nutshell, what they found was that place-based instruction correlated to bigger gains with a group that was considered low achieving. So they compared a low achieving group to an honors group. that were both instructed with place-based instruction, and he saw really big gains with that low-achieving group. So that was positive. They also tested student attitudes about science, because what they have found traditionally, and I didn't know this, that throughout the course of the year, students' attitudes about science generally decline, maybe because they're getting fatigued or they're just sick of the way science is being taught. There are a lot of reasons out there, but the attitudes about science did not decline with place-based instructions. So I found that really interesting. They also tried to measure achievement, and they got more mixed results on that. On the pre to post test, they saw gains for everybody, but not necessarily a bigger gain with place-based instruction than with traditional. They also looked at standardized testing, and they found no big differences on the standardized test between the traditional and place-based groups, and there are a lot of reasons for that. And my personal opinion is because standardized testing is not a useful measure of what students know. And I've kind of summarized that here with my Doran's ladder of usefulness. If the top of the ladder represents things that are highly useful, such as penicillin, the bottom of the ladder represents things that are not very useful. So you can see standardized testing barely comes in above Donald Trump's hairpiece and decaf coffee. Those are my personal opinions. So what do you do to make place-based instruction successful in your classroom so that students do enjoy doing it? The research has found that students must own the work. You can't just give them worksheets and a list of things to do. They really have to help come up with the questions and come up with the research themselves so that they own it. Also, this is higher order thinking, so you have to scaffold students and train them into thinking this way. You know, start small, take it step by step. And the research has also found that students will resist place-based instruction if it's not the norm. One student in the survey given at the end of place-based instruction said, "I would rather be bored and get an A than have to work hard and get a B or a C." So that kind of tells us something about student attitudes. If they know that something is not the norm in the way you're instructing them, there could be some resistance. So making this kind of thinking the norm in your classroom is definitely important. So that is my podcast about case studies and place-based instruction. Hope you guys are doing good. Have a good day.